Well, good evening, everyone. It is so good to see all of you tonight virtually all over the country. We are so thankful for your presence. Welcome to the Rainbow Push Coalition Connected Churches Town Hall. My name is Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr., and I have the awesome privilege of serving as the executive director of the West Coast Silicon Valley work under the amazing leadership of none other than Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. And my friends, tonight is a very special gathering. It's a very special experience for us. It is a very special night because we're so thankful to be able to work alongside such a giant, such a trendsetter, trailblazer, life-changing man who has for 6 decades been at the forefront of social justice, civil rights, and change. Reverend Jackson has been lifting up the banner for all of us to ride and rise, for us to have experiences, opportunities, open doors. Reverend Jackson has done a yeoman's work in so many corners of the globe, and he continues even now at 81 years young to fight the good fight. And so as you all are coming on, as you are sharing with friends and tagging friends and getting yourself ready, I want you to just take a minute, because as many of you know, this month we celebrated Reverend Jackson's birthday. We were able to be there in Chicago as we had a wonderful concert. He had his birthday cake and we did our Stevie Wonder version of Happy Birthday to him. But can you, wherever you are around the country, just put something in the chat? If you don't mind just sending a little shout out of love, put your hands together for those of you who are digitally inclined and have the capacity to put up some shout outs and show some love to our amazing leader, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. Thank you all so much for you being a part of the journey with us. I'm also grateful tonight as we share in this moment to honor the leadership that Reverend Jackson has so designated for such a time as this. We thank God for our interim executive director who is doing such a phenomenal job. Bishop Tavis Grant, thank you so much for your influence, your impact, and all that you're doing to continue to keep hope alive for all of us. And now, my friends, because we are so cognizant of your calendar, because we are so grateful for you taking this time, we don't want to extend beyond these moments of introduction. We want to move forward into our conversation and the content of tonight. You all are very well aware that Reverend Jackson, in his service under the leadership of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was all about voter rights and voter opportunities. He spent so many days sitting at the feet of Reverend King and learning about the value of the voice of our vote. And in the years since Dr. King's assassination, Reverend Jackson has been the leading voice of voter education and voter opportunities and voter instruction and voter information and voter registration. He has been the voice that has ensured that this country makes sure that we value our vote. And we know, friends, that our elections have been under attack. We know that we have had so many moments where our hearts and our minds and our spirits have been disappointed because of things that were happening right before our very eyes. And I'm grateful that with the collaborations that Reverend Jackson has engaged in Silicon Valley, that the company that has really stepped up and asked us to work with them over these past several years now, formerly known as Facebook, they're now known as Meta. We really do thank them for their collaboration as they continue to ensure that we have dialogue around how we make this a fair exchange of information and we utilize technology, digital resources, and social media correctly and advantageously for our benefit. And to that end, tonight, I'm honored to bring on our speaker. What a joy, what a privilege it is to have Brittany Kohler with us. Brittany manages the international initiatives for the Pointer MediaWise program. She is an amazing leader, journalist, speaker. She is an international impact agent. She has been doing media literacy literally all around the globe. She worked through the U.S. State Department's Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs and traveled all around India to teach journalists how to fact check, how to do digital literacy and media literacy. She joined this team even as she was finishing out her career at CNN, and she just decided that she wanted to take her voice and her capacity a little bit further. She knew that misinformation does damage, and she wanted to be able to ensure that all of us would hear the truth, know the truth, and then vote with the truth. And so I'm thankful for MediaWise and for this moment to be able to collaborate and to hear her voice. She has served in so many other capacities alongside President Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind. She is a graduate of the University of West Georgia with a master's in public administration, and she's a phenomenal gift to us. And let me just yield the floor, and I'm going to ask all of you to tune in and turn up your ears to listen and observe, watch, and be blessed by this amazing presentation tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Brittany Kohler.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Bryant. Let me share my screen. All right. Oh, hold on 1 second. And there we go. All right. So good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Bryant, just for an amazing introduction. Wow, I'm so honored to be here and excited just to talk with all of you tonight about media literacy and how that directly impacts voter education and voter empowerment. So for the next hour or so, I will walk you through techniques and tools to empower you, to empower your communities, to identify false information online before falling victim to these false narratives. And just to get started, I will also have a few questions throughout because I want to give everyone an opportunity to engage through the chat. And so my colleague Sal, he will be monitoring your responses and will chime in since I can't quite see the chat while I present. So to get started, let me tell you a little bit about MediaWise. So we are the Digital Media Literacy Initiative based out of the Poynter Institute. And our mission is to teach anyone of all ages how to sort fact from fiction online. We inform, we educate, and we innovate. And so I don't need to tell you any more about myself. Dr. Bryant covered that. But one little aspect, I am a very dedicated UGA Bulldog fan, go Dogs, as I did receive my Bachelor of Journalism from there. So a little bit about MediaWise. So we started in 2018, and our original supporters, who still exist to this day, came from Google and the Stanford History Education Group. And so we started in 2018, and this was coming out of the 2016 election, where we recognized that the term misinformation and disinformation became household common terms that beforehand really only lived mostly with fact checkers and with journalists. So we started in 2018 focusing on teens. They are the up and coming voters. They are the ones who are always on their devices. And so we wanted to make sure that they had tools to be able to identify fact from fiction, that when they received a video from their friends or a meme or a tweet, that they are able to identify it and not spread it. So then, coming out of teens in 2020, we expanded to focus in on a voter project, a MediaWise voter project, where it was a text-based course where anyone could register, and they would receive for 7 days content from our staff with little videos, how to become a more informed voter. And what came out of that, as well as leading into the pandemic, was MediaWise for seniors, because what we realized is that we focused on the teens, but those who are older adults or seniors are also online. They're on social platforms, and they are very civic minded, but but they're not digital natives. They're what we call digital immigrants. So they were still learning. And so we rolled out training and content for them, especially during COVID and the pandemic, because there was a lot of information coming out. And so we rolled out training for them as well. And then this year in 2022, we decided to take our work even further. And what we did is we took two approaches. One, we realized how in the United States, 41 million households speak Spanish, but yet media literacy and fact-checking tools, by contrast, are very much predominantly in English. And so we wanted to roll out an initiative to help the Spanish-speaking community. So we launched MediaWise in Espanol through a 10-day WhatsApp course in partnership with Noticias Telemundo, because they are just a very renowned and revered and trusted news source. And so we also rolled out internationally into 4 countries: Brazil, Turkey, Spain, and France, where we also rolled out micro-learning courses in those 4 countries as well, because those countries have or had upcoming elections this year and into next year that we knew would be very contentious. So for tonight, let's talk about the plan. The first, I'm going to talk about the disinformation challenge in African American communities. We're going to talk about how to fight falsehoods by thinking like a fact checker. And we're also going to talk about how you can bring it home and really weigh in on teaching your community. And we want to reiterate that throughout this presentation, that false narratives are spread, especially to marginalized communities, to disinform, to disenfranchise. And we're here tonight to try to stop that. So first up, and Sal, if you can monitor the chat, I want to ask, how would you define disinformation? What does disinformation mean to you? And what does misinformation mean to you? Because there is a difference that I will get into, and sometimes these terms can be used interchangeably, but there is a very real difference that needs to be understood between the two. So I will give you all a moment. Sal, do we have any comments in the chat?
Oh, we got something coming on real quick from Jenny Williams. Misinformation, knowingly changing facts to fit the point of you are trying to prove. So that's her definition of misinformation.
Knowingly changes facts. Okay. Anyone else? All right. So I will take you off the spot. So actually, disinformation is changing the narrative or knowing. So it's sharing false or misleading information on purpose, knowingly doing this with an intent to do it. Whereas misinformation is sharing fake, false, misleading information without knowing it. And so what that gets into is the why. Why do people spread these two things? So why do they spread disinformation? The first is they want to build followers. Likely they are going to make money. They may have political motivations and propaganda that they want to spread. But also most of the time they want to disrupt democracy, and they know that they can do that by fracturing communities. And that is something that we have seen time and time again across the world. And so they splinter these marginalized communities. And these two examples are very just solid examples of how they want to fracture the community. So they want to try, here in the first example, they want to try to tell all the African Americans to leave and go back to Africa. And that's not, we are America. We are all America. And then secondly, here from these tweets, or not tweets, but from the Truth Network, where Trump is supposedly saying that the election was rigged and stolen. Again, trying to fracture these communities, because we know that the election, it has been proven, the election was not rigged, it was not stolen. And then spreading misinformation. So people spread misinformation because they are unaware that it's a false information. What they're seeing, what they're sharing, they don't know that it actually is or disinformation. So what we see is a transition. The disinformation that was started intentionally transitions into misinformation because people are sharing it by not knowing. And that's really where the threat comes, because at that time when it's spread amongst, internal text message groups, internal WhatsApp groups, whatever platform that you may be on texting with your friends, at that time it starts to grow and grow and grow. But people also shared this misinformation because they want to help, or there's an emotional connection. And it's all so just really understanding, because as a community, as people, we want the best for our loved ones, for our friends, and we want to be able to share information that we think is helpful. And there's also, especially during breaking news, there's always this instant feeling of having to comment right away onto something, or make a comment or share, and that's not always the best case. And so just going back to how they want to help, looking at these two examples, talking about how the COVID vaccine is linked to miscarriage, which we know is not true. We know that has been proven, but it's very understandable why these sort of misinformation it spreads. Because in the US, there is the history of medical racism and exploitation through medical mistreatment, experimentations on the Black population, and it's a real concern. So it's absolutely understandable why people spread it, why they want to be concerned for their loved ones, for their unborn children. But in reality, that was hurting the population and hurting people, because by not getting the vaccine, it actually led to some not full-term pregnancies, as well as also some miscarriages too. And then exactly how does disinformation reach the African-American community? So that can be through a lot of where we see is, of course, social media. We all love our social media, but it can also at the same time be a platform for people to spread disinformation, which then again transforms into misinformation. Also through messaging apps, YouTube, TikTok. There's just such an infodemic right now of content that it's a lot. And the key topics that we see, especially for marginalized communities, are hate crimes, police shootings, racialized narratives, civil rights. And it's really just trying to hone in and kind of break the cycle of the misinformation. So, for example, one way that race can be weaponized to spread disinformation is this video, which here you just see a screenshot, but on social media. So there was a fight in a New York subway station, and the author of this, the person who took it, claimed that this was a Black Lives Matter attack on someone else. And in fact, that was never confirmed. This ended up just being nothing more than a normal fight, which I don't like to say normal fight, but nothing that was related to any sort of movement, any sort of organization. It's just something that happened between two people. But again, the movement was used as a tool and trying to really bring a false narrative to the movement. And so other ways that this can be pitted against one another by manipulating statistics. That is something very real, but something also to be very careful for. Rolling back on civil rights policies, creating tension between communities. As we have seen, I think really over the past several years, that has really grown, unfortunately, in cherry picking information to create a false narrative that fits what they want to say. And so what we have seen is that for the African-American community, they've really, unfortunately, it's been a issue of topic of disinformation, but also as a target of disinformation. And so working through the topic, disinformation has been created with the intent to create division among communities of all different races, and really trying to demonize civil rights movements, which is the complete opposite of what they are and how they should be perceived. And then another prime example of being the target is from this tweet on your perhaps right side by someone who is known to spread false narratives, claiming that Darrell Brooks Jr., who, as we know, was arrested for the Waukesha Christmas parade attack, this tweet was trying to incite a false narrative against Black Lives Matter by claiming that Darrell was an advocate of the movement, when in fact there's been no substantial evidence that he was, but there was evidence in social media posts that he has been somewhat of a supporter for the Black Hebrew Israelite and Black nationalist beliefs movement, but no history of politically or motivated violence. But yet again, they were trying to disrupt a narrative and the good that the Black Lives Matter movement is doing by trying to associate this attack with the movement. And then for the target of disinformation, we see here with this texting your vote scam. So this is a campaign, a paid advertisement that claims that you can skip the voting line by texting your vote, which we all know is absolutely not true. You cannot text your vote, but it is a really easy way to try to get through to people who maybe think that something has changed. Maybe they think, oh, we can now text by voting, and that way it helps us to not be able to get, because people can't take off work, they may not have transportation, all sorts of things, and they want to make sure that their vote is heard, their voice is heard, but in fact, they're missing out on the opportunity through this false advertisement that was placed. And then another example of African Americans being the target of disinformation is when we see the screenshot. This is from a video posted to Twitter claiming that under Biden's presidency, Black Lives Matter protests have been rampant, and that political violence from the left is more rampant than it is from the right. And authors of this content they're clearly pushing for a right-wing agenda and candidates by using African Americans as the target of disinformation. And that is what we are trying to break. And so just a couple other examples of election misinformation. For those of you here in Georgia, you see, as you are very well aware, and I am here proudly from talking to you from Atlanta, that, during the last election, that there were the issues, the claims that there was election fraud, ballot harvesting, when in fact, there was not. Investigations showed that there was no fraud, there was no anything illegal taking place, but yet social media went viral claiming that there was. And then as well, the other state, Arizona, where again, the elections there were contested, claiming that many votes were discarded, were found fraudulent, when in fact, that was not the case again. But it's pushing in this election misinformation to try to get people to think that there's a problem with our electoral system. And this disinformation, it has real world consequences. And in the state of Florida, there was a constitutional amendment to allow felons the opportunity to vote. And this was passed by popular votes, so the state had to ratify the Constitution. And then the governor, Ron DeSantis, created the Election Security Board to investigate voter fraud in the state following this amendment. Well, people with certain felonies were not allowed to vote even after the ratification, but that was not made clear. So when they applied, the state approved their application, sending these applicants their registration ID, their voter ID, their ballot. And so they voted. But again, this was not made clear to the people, to the felons who were now, they thought that they could vote, that their felony actually prevented them. And so they were then rounded up and arrested, but yet they received the application and the card and the ballot from the state. So it's really a heartbreaking situation of where information, disinformation, and false narratives are being spread, because now these people who were free are now finding themselves back in jail for election fraud and taking them away from their loved ones, from their families, and from their communities. And this is what we are trying to stop. And so the solution is really a comprehensive media literacy. And that's because what we want to do is inoculate people against dis and misinformation. Because while the tech platforms, they are doing what they can to pull down misinformation, disinformation as it comes across, the flood of information, of false information being put out there is just rampant. There's not enough fact checkers in the world, enough people in the world to try to keep this information coming down. And so by inoculating people and providing tools that they can be even slightly empowered to fact check something or double check something before they share it, really is just a positive step in the right way. And so the solution, a comprehensive media literacy, we want to empower communities to spot mis and disinformation on their own, build trust in local media sources, those that are transparent and are verified as being actual, legitimate, trustworthy sources, building knowledge on the digital world, because the digital landscape is vast and broad, and to really hone in on fighting misinformation where it is. And so what you can see here, I'm going to show you now some misinformation disguises, how these may come across to you and to loved ones, so that way you can easily identify them. And I will be the first to say, especially when it comes to memes, I have seen funny memes and shared them with friends and family without even checking. Most of the time they are harmless, but even still, I saw a harmless meme, I shared it with a friend, and then I realized, nope, let me check. And it was in fact misinformation. And so that takes me to memes, right? So memes are funny images, but not always funny. They also kind of get at your gut. They tap into your emotions. But they're very easy to make. Anyone can make a meme. All you need is an image and some text on your smartphone, and you have an image, a meme created. A lot of times, most of the time, they lack context and they lack sources, and they're very easy to go viral. As we can see from these, a couple of these examples, I'll talk about the Floyd meme, George Floyd meme. So the claim was that the news and Black Lives Matter don't care about violence against white people, which is just not true. But this was used to try to drive in a false narrative to divide the country and to divide and fracture the community and people across all races. And then also to the one where it says your stories, your cities, your borders, their vacation. This one has the image of President Biden with his family. This we have actually fact checked as well through MediaWise with one of our team fact checkers, and all of these images are taken out of context, out of place. The image of the empty store shelves is actually an image out of London. So again, but people pulled all of these images together to create a meme to try to spread a false narrative that was not true. And then videos, another really easy way to share and spread mis and disinformation are through videos. And we see those in three real types. One, out of context. So you're going to see a real video, but it was altered in a way with very easy editing tools, almost as easy as on your phone, to try to spread a false narrative. And then there are also cheap fakes that are real video, and those are edited in a sense of like slowing down someone's speech. So unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi has been a big target of this, where her speech is slowed down to make her sound intoxicated, when in fact she's not. But that is a very clear form of cheap fakes. And then we also have deep fakes, which are AI generated, which aren't quite as often, but they are seeing an uptick more. But really right now we're seeing mostly out of context videos. And I want to show you an example of that.
You think it's inappropriate. I'm not going to take any questions because you think it's inappropriate. I'm not going to take any questions.
So as you can see here, someone tweeted out this short clip of Biden saying, I'm not going to take any questions because I think it's inappropriate. To someone who has not seen the entire video, to someone who has not read any of the articles or the press release from this event, may take this to be like, wait, he's not answering questions from the press. Like, why is he doing this? Why does he think that he can't? When in fact, that is not the case. It's completely opposite, as you will see here in this video.
Thank you all so very, very much for being here. And I'm not going to take any questions because I think it's inappropriate to take questions with the justice here. He's still sitting on the bench, but you'll have plenty of opportunities to get me later today and for the rest of the week.
So as you can see here, the actual video provides greater context from that snippet and how that snippet could be used and has been used to generate a false narrative against Biden. And then also, as an example of a deep fake, I want you to listen to this and really hone in, because it is almost eerily how similar, like it will really throw you off.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or, how about this, simply, President Trump is a total and complete. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. That's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information.
So as you can see here, that was an example of a deep fake. And watching this, like, I was like, this is not right. This is not right. And because it wasn't, it was a deep fake. But this shows you just how easy it can be to manipulate, and that technology is only getting better. And so there are tools and people out there working to continue to try to make identifying this even better. And so images, this is another classic style of disinformation. And again, a lot like the videos, there are three main types. So there's the out of context, which are real pictures, but they're used at a different, they're said to be taken at a different time. Perhaps the caption completely misconstrues or completely does not describe what is actually going on in the picture. They can be manipulated to add or remove features to spread a false narrative. And there's also graphics, which present data that perhaps given at that moment in time can be misleading. And so for that, I want to walk you through these examples, which the example of the cargo ships. So this again was taken from one of those apps where you can watch and monitor all the ships in the ocean and where they are tracking to. And so at this specific moment in time, yes, there are a lot of ships in the ocean. There are a lot of ships always in the ocean in transit. It does not by any means indicate that there's an issue or a problem with the supply, with people coming into port. So this was used as a way just to really try to generate an agenda of issues and saying that there are false narratives out there and that people are not able to get into port. And then the other, this other example right here with the corgis, this is what we will consider out of context. And this is because this picture was posted on September 10th, 2 days after Queen Elizabeth passed, stating that her corgis had arrived back at London Heathrow from Balmoral. And when in fact, this image was taken in 1993. Yes, when the Queen had arrived from Balmoral back to London Heathrow, but the date was drastically wrong. And again, 1993, many decades ago. And then lastly, manipulated content, as we see here with this picture from President Obama and Michelle. Clearly, this has been manipulated to add coloring to her face to make it look like she has a shadow, and from a mustache or beard, which she does not, she never did. And actually, we will have an example in just a little bit walking through how to verify images. So if you came across something like this or another questionable image, you will be able to check it yourself. And so then another example of misinformation and the disguises that it takes is cross-posted content. And this is because cross-posted content from one site to another loses context, and it's very easy to fool. There are many websites out there and apps that you can easily create something to make it look like it was a tweet from Twitter, when in fact it wasn't. And you can put in any image, type in any name, and you can make it look as if it was a real tweet. It also hides the original source of information, and it also can fit into a meme trend. And so with that, I actually want to put another test. So Sal, I will ask you to come off mute and look in the chat. But here we have two examples. One, we have a screenshot from a tweet claiming to be a CNN article about Johnny Depp being rumored to organize a national tour with Kyle Rittenhouse. And then here we have another screenshot, again claiming to be from CNN, where the Roe decision triggers fear coming out of the next moves by the Supreme Court. So if you can just drop in the chat, which one do you think is real? And maybe it's neither. Maybe it's both. Anyone? All right. Well, so what we have actually are the tweet on my left is the false screenshot, and the one on the right is the true screenshot. And there's a couple ways here. I actually want to just walk you through this. So first one, the false narrative. Clearly, it's from a tweet that has been screenshotted. So the tweet itself includes the screenshot. But also, if you come across something like this, and this isn't just for CNN, this is for any news article. This could be for ABC News, NBC, CBS, the BBC, any news outlet that you follow, any newspaper as well. Go to their app, go to their website and look. One, you can do an easy search for the story on their website, but two, you can also compare placement of bugs, of little, like the live TV bug, as you can see here, how that is different, how the CNN bug itself is different, where the drop down, but also looking at the font, which I know seems just kind of like, what, who would think about font? But font is very big for a company's branding. And so they will keep consistent font throughout as well. So that's another telltale sign. If you come across a screenshot that you're just unsure whether or not it's true. And then also pink slime websites. So these are imposter sites where they try to make themselves look legitimate. So they may actually contain some truth nuggets or some little bit of stories that are actually true, but they're filtered in with false stories, with false narratives. And a lot of times people don't know that. So they come across these sites and they think, oh, yes, if I'm in Detroit, here's a new local station, new local website, the Detroit City Wire. When in case, this is actually a false news site, a pink slime site, as we like to call it. And so it's really just about being, knowing who your reliable sources are and just making sure and verifying who those sources are before trusting that they are a legitimate source of information. And then another type of disinformation and misinformation that gets spread are what we call zombie claims. And I think as anyone, especially those from the state of Georgia knows, where The Walking Dead was filmed, zombie claims never die. And they are very much related to health disinformation, disaster coverage, political themes, and they can also be funny in times. And so here, when the one that we see about when Hank Aaron passed, again, this tends to come up a lot because it's about health information. And while, yes, he had the vaccine shortly before passing, it has come out, doctors have come out, this was not his cause of death. But people will share that and they continue to share it. Also, Jason Derulo falling down the stairs at the Met Gala. He has never fallen down the stairs. This first came out in 2011, but yet every year it comes out. I even saw it this past summer with a new take on it in 2022. So it still, again, will not go away. And then also, I think we have all possibly seen the shark, this shark gets around from Texas to South Carolina, to Florida, even down to Puerto Rico. However, this shark has not been swimming on any interstates or freeways. And in fact, this shark was lifted from a National Geographic image taken in 2005 off the coast of South Africa. But again, it just goes to show you how these zombie claims never die. They always come around, and yet they always seem to pick up steam around the new narrative. So some red flags when you come across misinformation or disinformation is that they trigger an emotional reaction. They are designed to trigger either laughter, something funny, but something visceral, something just angry, because they know that in those moments that you are least likely to stop and to check it. So you really have to just what we try to tell everyone is just really trying to take a moment to recognize that this could be something, disinformation, a false narrative, and really trying to just take a step back and breathe and then check it before sharing. Also, anonymous and unverified accounts. Now, yes, not all accounts that are legitimate may be verified. However, double check anything that is unverified, and anything that is anonymous, absolutely 100% is a sign that it is some sort of disinformation. And also, these sort of disinformation narratives do play off of breaking news because, again, going back to that gut reaction that tends to come up a lot in breaking news situations, they know that people are less likely to check because in the moment, even as a journalist, we all want to be in the moment, and so does the regular public. But it's important to pause before sharing anything. It has to be verified. So how do we verify? What can you teach your community to verify things. So really we like to teach 3 questions, and this came out from some research conducted by the Stanford History Education Group, where they wanted to see who are the best navigators of the internet, who navigates false information the best. And after their research, they came up with fact checkers. Fact checkers are the best at navigating the internet. And so they asked them, what do you do? And so it's 3 main questions that fact checkers use. And that is, who is behind the information? What is the evidence? And what do other sources say? And really, this is a lot like a journalist 5 W's, right? Who, what, where, when, why. And so really, by teaching these 3 questions can empower your community to just take a moment to take a step back. And so now we're going to employ these into some examples. So here we have a video, this lovely little TikTok.
So in New York, you're required to have an ID to buy Ready Whip, but you don't have to have one to vote. Make that make sense for me.
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say
what?
what? Say.
So you come across that. And so what we are going to do is we are going to research this. We're going to research this using a little tool called lateral reading. And this is a really foundational fact-checking technique when searching the internet. And what this means is that you're checking every bit of this claim. So you're going to check who posted it, who shared it, who are they referencing, Google the topic that they're talking about, and literally try to read laterally across your browser with multiple tabs to discover and to really investigate who shared this information and where this information came from. So for this topic, what we did is we did a search in Twitter and we came across this tweet. Now, this person was not the original source of the information, but this was one of the most popular ones. So we decided to pull this for the example. And so this person, Ryan, says, so you now need to show an ID in New York to buy canned whipped cream, but not one to vote. So we see Ryan's name and we want to investigate further. So what we do is we then open up another tab and we go to his profile to try to find out some more information about him. So we see kind of like where he's leaning, what he's thinking. And then we go from Twitter, we go over to Instagram and we see what kind of post he has made in Instagram as well. So that way we start to get a sense of where he falls, what type of information does he tend to share, because sometimes people share different types of information across different platforms, and sometimes they share similar. So trying to get an idea, is this person an authority on this topic? Can he actually talk to the electoral process in New York? And so then we continue to really research and to see where he's coming from. Who is he? What is he? What has he done? And again, as we continue to dive further into this information, including where you can showing ID to buy whipped cream, but not to vote, like what is this? And you can see that here we actually, this was fact checked by some people, including our sister vertical at Pointer PolitiFact. And here, again, I want to emphasize the lateral reading. So we've been opening up multiple tabs to identify who this person is, to identify the content. And so it is literally across the top of our browser. And what we have identified ultimately is that you still have to have an ID to vote. This was disinformation completely, because you still have to have an ID to vote. And again, it's not just for whipped cream. So now, moving forward, here's another example. So here we see a graph. And as I mentioned earlier, graphs, data all of that is just very, very questionable information to follow. But for this, we are going to use a technique called reading upstream. And what reading upstream is, it's following a link within a news story or a claim directly to the source of the information to find those primary sources, because those are the original sources. So it's very important to go to the primary source. And so this can help you answer what is the evidence, but it can also help kind of further give context to the additional questions as well. And so by heading directly to these primary sources, it's a good way to get unfiltered facts, and you can make your own judgment, your own thoughts regarding it. And again, it's just really important to never take data or any statistic at face value without confirming and clarifying its context, because data can be construed in any way to give out any sort of narrative, depending on how someone wants to make the graph or do any sort of the XY axes. And so here, as we can see in the slide, in this Instagram post, we have looked for a link that claims to be the source of the information. And so now what we are going to do is we are going to look at a video where we will actually walk through this, walk through our research. And so here we can see that this person is not any sort of health professional or authority to be a reliable source. They are actually citing another database. And so that is a big clue. If someone is not even a doctor, but yet they're citing information, definitely not a credible source. So here we go to this database. And you can see here where we talk about the adverse effects and reporting tool, and it kind of walks you through how you report an adverse effect. But also, as you can see right here, it's also saying that these should not be taken for any reason and why you should not get a vaccine itself. So again, the actual information, the actual context, the primary source was manipulated in a way to share and spread disinformation by providing a false narrative on that graph, stating that the number of doses correlated to increase in death chances. And so now back again to the, as I already spoiled, fake picture of the Obamas. So here we're going to walk through a reverse image search, which is not as scary as it sounds. I promise this is really simple and easy to do, but it's also a really great way to quickly identify if a picture you're looking at has been manipulated or if perhaps it has been used in the wrong context. And so, for instance, the image that I had of the Queen's corgis coming back, I did a quick reverse image search with that, and that's how I discovered that it actually dated from 1993. So here we will see an example of just walking through a reverse image search. And it's really about just saving it to your phone, saving the image to your computer, going to Google Lens, going to Bing. There's also a tool called TinEye, and you can just drop it in there and it will give you a quick result of where this image has shown up before, if it has been manipulated in any way or not. And so here we can see this is the actual image of the Obamas, the original image that has now confirmed to be what we saw in the post to be manipulated content. So again, just bringing it all back together to these three questions: who is behind the information? What is the evidence? And what do other sources say? These will all help you and your communities verify information, or at least slow down and try to verify, if not fully verify, at least be able to identify something that may be overtly false. And so just to briefly kind of recap these terms, because I know I've thrown a lot at you and you didn't realize it was going to be like a school session. So lateral reading, that is where you really try to get back. You research as much as possible by opening up multiple tabs and researching the author of the post, researching the sources that they cite, researching to see what other organizations have talked about this, and seeing what other news out there is circulating regarding it. Reading upstream. This again is about following the source that is cited. So follow that link. Follow if there's not a link, if a study is quoted or if a source is quoted, go to that source. Read upstream and continue to read upstream until you get to the primary, the original source of the content. Pink slime journalism. Again, those are false imposter websites that give off a sense of being authentic when in fact they are not, and they are spreading misinformation and disinformation through those sites. And then of course, zombie claims. These are the claims that just will never die. You will see them time and time again. And next time you see the shark swimming in another state, you can tell your friends and family, you know that where that shark is not from the States, that it was filmed almost 2 decades ago off the coast of South Africa. And then lastly, the most important thing that we want to hammer home about media literacy is really talking to friends and family about it, because as we have seen, disinformation is meant to fracture communities, and media literacy is trying to mend that. And you mend it by talking and having open conversations, open and private conversations. So if a friend or family member has shared something that you know to be false, that you know to be mis or disinformation, talk to them about it, but talk to them privately. Don't call them out. No one wants to be called out in front of other people. And have empathy when you talk to them. Try to understand where they came from, because perhaps like the health misinformation, that is something that your friend or your family member wanted to share out of concern. And by educating them, by talking to them about how to identify that, by taking these few steps of trying to see who is behind the information, who's the source, and what's the evidence, and what are other people saying, it can help kind of turn that dialogue and make them more informed. And again, it's not about trying to change someone's beliefs or thoughts. It's really just about trying to teach them about how to identify mis and disinformation on their own before falling victim and before spreading that to friends and family. And so if you would like to continue more, we do have a 7-day course. This is absolutely free. You will hear from our ambassadors. So this is, I promise it will not take up much of your time. It is a 5-minute a day course for 7 days where you will get a snippet of information. It will ask you a question. You are not graded on the questions or answers, but really it's meant to engage, because we want this to be a learning process, not just for you, but for your community as well. And then there will be a video, and we have people from all over who take part. We have Joan London, we have Hari Srinivasan, and we have our own Director of MediaWise, Alex Mahadevan. He is actually like the host through it. And so it's a great fun way to educate, and this is meant for people of all ages. So whether you have a teen or you have someone who is still rocking their iPhone at 90 years young, we encourage everyone to take this course just to become more informed. And so again, we just really want to recap that there is the disinformation challenge in African-American communities, and we want to try to stop this fractured narrative to bring everyone together. And we really want to empower everybody to think like a fact checker, to fight false narratives like a fact checker in just a few simple tools and a few simple minutes a day when they come across something, and really just Media literacy is about spreading it and talking about it, and just teaching and getting out there on the ground and talking with everyone. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something to be empowered with, and to teach everyone. And so with that, I would like to support our friends at Meta for making this happen this afternoon. And Dr. Bryant, we absolutely love working with you. And if you have any questions now, I will open it up and try to open up my chat without bringing down my presentation. But if it does, Sal, if you can jump in and help me.
Fantastic job, Brittany. Thank you so much for just outlining so many critical pieces. I know that as you were sharing, so many thoughts of things that I've seen online and that we've experienced with social media came to mind. And I think that for a lot of us, just being reminded that you can't believe everything you see, unfortunately. It's one of those things where, so much of the information that people are trying to change or alter or put it into a context for their own selfish gain or selfish benefit, we've got to be so cautious. And I think that for those of us on this call, those of us participating tonight, we can go back to our communities and make sure that they are reminded of the fact that not all information is good information or right information. And so you've given us some snippets. And let me just say to everyone who's tuned in tonight, we are going to make some things available to you. For those of you that have registered, we will have a link that we'll send to you, a very special link that you'll be able to go back and recall and remind yourself of some things that you learned tonight, help yourself to equip yourself, and not just for the midterms, because we know those are happening in a few weeks, but literally going forward as you just try to make sure that you're safe online, because we realize that the internet is a phenomenal tool, but it also can be misused and abused in so many ways. And so, Brittany, we thank you and Sal for taking the time. And I see, Sal, you did perfect timing, Sal. You put in the chat exactly what I was thinking. And that was, this is how folks can get more information. You can go into the chat. You can see what Sal has put there in order for you to get more information and more resources, because we want to make sure you're equipped. And I know for those of our Rainbow Push family around the country, some of you had asked about being able to make this available in your regions, be able to help your specific areas to be more equipped, because again, we want to fight the false narrative. We want to be able to give correct information, good information, accurate information, and the right information so that people can make good decisions. And one of the things that I'm very keenly aware of, and I know Reverend Jackson would want me to reiterate, is that people get discouraged from voting when misinformation dominates. People need the truth in order for them to feel good about going to the polls, especially those of you who know, as we advocate for voter opportunities and so many things come out that try to fight against our opportunities, our rights to utilize our voice and our vote, people get discouraged. People will become frustrated and not want to participate. It's up to us to advocate and make sure that we get the right information. We send people the right types of information. We don't just click on something and assume that it's correct, but we actually can go back, as Brittany taught us tonight. We can check things out ourselves and see what the source is. Sometimes it is correct. Other times it may be an underhanded agenda objective that's trying to push the issue. So I'm thankful. Thank you again, Brittany. Let's give Brittany a hand, everybody, whether you can do it virtually on your screen, you can snap your fingers, you can put up some claps. We're going to see what your digital capacity is. And because I know we have a lot of folks on tonight that are still becoming comfortable with the internet, you're still getting used to it, I want to just take a moment to let you know that we didn't want you to just come on tonight and get this information. That was the big part of our presentation. But we also want to remind you that the Rainbow Push Coalition is available to help teach, train, educate, and equip you to navigate the waters which we are currently in. And that includes the digital divide. That includes being able to use our skill sets to navigate, even on the very basic levels, social media, online techniques, utilizing the tools that are at our disposal. And I'm so grateful that Another one of the Silicon Valley partners that Reverend Jackson opened the doors to, Google. They partnered with us to create a toolkit where we are able to give you virtual training, in-person training. And this has really been the cornerstone of what we call connected churches. And if you all could just put something on the screen real quick that I can share before we hear from Bishop Grant. We've been so fortunate to be able to help our faith leaders navigate the pandemic utilizing technology. Again, Reverend Jackson went to Silicon Valley companies and asked for them to partner with us. And Google in particular helped us to develop a toolkit to be able to provide information, training, insight on how to use Google Docs, MailChimp, how to send out different things to your congregation, how to set up, and lately, how to set up Zoom, how to do live streams. We are available to you as a Push Tech team here based in Silicon Valley, our Connected Churches platform. We are available to you to be able to provide that type of information. And so we want to remind you that that's what we are here for. We'll give you a little more information in a moment, but I see he's there and I know his time is so valuable. And I recognize as he takes on this mantle that God and Reverend Jackson have entrusted to him, he is that much more stretched, continuing to be a spiritual leader, but giving great leadership to our organization, which you all kindly welcome for some remarks. Our wonderful interim executive director, who truly is doing a phenomenal job as he leads us in the spirit of Reverend Jackson. You all welcome our brother, Bishop Tavis Grant.
Well, thank you so very much, Dr. Bryant, and you and your team have done a fantastic job with this presentation. Brittany Kohler has done an incredible job in laying out the landscape and the canvas as it relates to misinformation, misinterpretation, and the mistranslation of information, particularly as it relates to the most consequential election of our time. You know, in 34 various states across the country, there's some form of voter suppression, whether it is insurrection or sedition, or those who want to secede from the Union. The forces and the oppositions that we face must always be reminded, and we must always remember that tough times don't last, tough people do. These tools that are made available to you and your church and people who are like-minded as you give us the comparative edge to be able to contend with the forces that want to take our country back to a time where women could not vote, minorities could not vote, there was not equal access to capital and or education, and let alone health care. So much is at stake, and yet your participation in this democracy is what helps us create and be able to achieve a more perfect union. So I want to thank you for your time this evening. And again, our Silicon Valley entity under the leadership of Dr. Joseph Bryant has presented a phenomenal opportunity for you to gain, to improve, and to grow. And then this platform of Meta MediaWise and the consultants that are joined with us, including Google, afford us the opportunity to achieve at a height never seen before under the leadership of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. This Push Tech entity and this opportunity to engage, empower, equip, and educate you puts us in the square of being able to contend with the forces that want to take us back, take us over, and take us down. So I want to thank you so very much. And on behalf of our founder and president, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, thank you for letting us and helping us keep hope alive. Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Keep up the great job.
Thank you so much, Bishop. We appreciate you and your leadership so much. And as I shared, it's wonderful to collaborate with those that Reverend Jackson has selected to provide leadership in this season. And Bishop, you are truly doing an awesome job. All the years that you've worked alongside Reverend Jackson, you truly do embody his spirit and you have brought that excellence to us across the country as we continue to press forward. And as Bishop was saying, this is a critical time, my friends. And I want to again just give a huge shout out to MediaWise and to Brittany and to Sal and for their efforts under the directive and collaborative efforts with Meta, because there's a reality that there are people that are trying to steal what so many fought for us to have in the first place. And they're trying to take away that which has been a cornerstone of democracy. And so even though it's the midterms, and I know that that's one of the reasons why we wanted to really lean in on this tonight, because so many people avoid midterm elections. They don't feel it's as valuable. They don't realize that in your city, in your county, in your municipality, in the areas where you live and your children go to school, the decisions that you make in this election are going to directly affect those types of realities for you. It's going to affect the quality of the education your children receive, the quality of opportunities for employment, the quality of the roads that are being paved and managed throughout your city. So many things that we complain about day to day are affected because of the decision we make in our elections and who has the seat of power to make those decisions. And so we want you to vote, get out the vote. We're going to be spending the next 3 weeks continuing this very similar engagement through social media. Tonight, we were just showing you that we realize that not all things on social media are true, but thanks to Brittany and Sal and their organization, we're going to be able to help others. We're going to share snippets and clips and various pieces of information on the social media platforms, YouTube, and various other channels through both the Push Tech office and through the national office. It's so important. And let me just give a huge shout out again to our Push Tech team. As you can see, and many of you are aware that we have been doing what we call Faith Tech for the past several years to bring digital tools into the church. And so you can continue to navigate, you can continue to do great work in your ministry. And so we didn't want to just say to you, this is information about the election. We, as Bishop Grant said, are here for the long haul. And so if you all could just show a couple of slides, I just want to remind our audience that we are here, and this is it right here. We are here. We have a toolkit that is able to help you in whatever areas that your church may need or that you may need personally. Next slide. We are prepared to make sure that you can get basic digital training, one-on-one sessions, train the trainer experiences for young adults in your church, digital management for technology in your ministry so you can have a better way to manage your membership, manage your communications. Huge shout out to my own home church, Calvary Hill Community Church, and the blessings that we have been able to enjoy. We were doing technology many, many years ago, and then Reverend Jackson with his vision just helped us to take and literally enlarge our territory. And I'm grateful for our team as well as the Push Tech team. Next slide. We want to make sure that you are able to connect with us and receive the kind of information that you need on any of these areas. Look at this. This is what we teach. This is what our digital specialists who are on with us tonight, Jenny Williams and Dallas Finzi, they are available. And all you need to do is sign up, go to our website, send us an email. We will help you with Gmail. If you don't have an account, an email account that you know how to use well, we'll help you set it up. And the beauty of Gmail, as I close, is that if you utilize a Gmail account, then you'll have access to all these other tools. You'll have an easier way to manage your forms, your documents, your calendar, presentations, all these various kinds of things. So again, we're grateful for the collaborative effort of bringing together this toolkit and being able to share it with you. And so we're looking forward to actually go to our website, connectedchurches.org, so you can sign up for your own church, your ministry. Even if you want to have something done personally, you want to have a one-on-one session, and we actually make those available. And if you are in our regional offices areas, which includes Atlanta, where Brittany is right now, and it includes DC, and it includes Detroit, and it includes New York, and it obviously includes the Bay Area. We even have an affiliate in Los Angeles. If you are in any of those areas, and of course, if you are connected to our headquarters in Chicago, you can sign up for a training. We're going to be training, actually, very proudly, we're going to be working with parents of students while their children are learning STEM. We're going to be teaching the parents how to manage online as well, so they can keep up with their children. We're going to be doing those trainings under the leadership of Reverend Jeanette Wilson right there in Chicago. And we have several sports initiatives we're doing for career development, including in Atlanta over the next several months. And so we're excited about being able to do these kinds of things, to collaborate with you to make a difference. Well, friends, our time has been so well spent. And I want you to know that I'm grateful. I'm humbled. I oftentimes say that I'm honored to serve at the behest of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, the trust that he has placed into us to lead his vision, to take his words, his heart, his passions, and bring them to pass. It is truly a humbling experience, and I'm grateful for it. I want to thank again our friends at MediaWise. I want to thank again the continual collaboration with Meta, formerly known as Facebook, and all that they have done to continue to collaborate so efficiently with Rainbow Push. They have become really good friends. We're involved with them with their civil rights initiatives. We're involved with them with their Elevate Digital Certification training. And of course, this amazing platform with our friends, Sal and Brittany. It's just a joy to be able to work with you all. And let's get out the vote. Let's make sure that we teach, train, and educate one another on how to get out the vote and make sure we avoid misinformation and get the right information so we can use our voice and our votes to make a difference. Now, in the spirit of who we are as the Rainbow Push Coalition, Reverend Jackson would have it no other way. I'm going to pray for you as we close. And thank you for those of you that are on the East Coast. I know it's getting pretty late there. Thank you for those on the West Coast. I know it's dinner time here. And thanks for everybody in between for taking a little time out of your schedules to be with us tonight. And Father God, we give you all of the glory and all of the praise. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to collaborate one with the other, from civil rights organizations to corporate entities and nonprofits and media agencies. We are here, God, to ensure that we can make justice arise in times like these, that truth prevails, and that people can stand and know that their voice and their votes matter. We thank you, God, for the opportunity to utilize this platform so that we can see a better world around us and a better world in our future. Continue to bless our leader, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. Cover him and strengthen him every day, from the crown of his head to the sole of his feet. And bless the work of our hands and hearts. May it all be blessed with your favor, and may you breathe upon it well, that we may exceed our own expectations and do greater works for this season, for such a time as this, that we impact the world for your glory. And we thank you. In your name we do pray. Amen. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Thank you so much. And as always, keep hope alive. Good night.